I can't find you in torrents of time, visions gone by.
Hello, my name is Holly Totten, and I am here to welcome everyone to the book launch for Susan Forrest's book, Flights of Marigold. It is the second in the Addicted to Heaven series, and it is also got this song that goes along with it. It is written by Sora. It's called Where Are You Now? It's the one that we just played, and it has been nominated for Best Poem in Song in this year's Aurora Awards, presented tonight, so I hope everyone gets a chance to have a look. Also presenting, or nominated, is Susan Forrest, so remember that. If you are unfamiliar with Zoom, we have a presenter view and grid view. I recommend watching this in presenter view. Otherwise, you're going to get just many, many, many faces. If you have any questions for Susan Forrest during this afternoon's book launch, I recommend writing it into the chat, and we'll bring it up in the Q&A afterwards. What we're going to be doing is Susan Forrest, she will talk about Flights of Marigold and do a short reading. There will be a video, and then we will go into Q&A. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Susan Forrest, nominated for this year's Aurora Award for Bursts of Fire for the first book in the Addicted to Heaven series. Everyone give a big round of applause for Susan.
Thank you, Holly, for the lovely introduction. I'd just like to mention also that Holly is an artist in her own right, and I am so fortunate that she created this amazing map that is in the inside of the book. And she was had the vision behind the video series and did the editing. She was just absolutely awesome. Thank you to all of you for attending. There's so many people here tonight. I'm just so happy to see all of you. This is great. Thank you to Jim for being the host, and Sora again for that beautiful song that was nominated for the Aurora tonight. Also, Samantha Bako is an award-winning cover artist. She did the covers to both Flights of Marigold and to Flights of Marigold and Bursts of Fire, the two books that have come out. And she's also nominated for tonight's Aurora, so do be watching out for her. Thank you to all the actors and all the artists who gave up their time and volunteered to be in my videos. I was so pleased. But most of all, I really would like to say a huge thank you to Laxa Media and to Lucas Law, the publishers of my book series. They have been absolutely phenomenal to me. I am the luckiest author in the world to have Laxa Media as my publisher. The other thing, though, is that Laxa has a very particular mission or calling, and that is to raise social issues for discussion, to reduce stigma. And so the Addicted to Heaven series is specifically, although it's an action, adventure, fantasy, epic fantasy, the core idea behind it has to do with addictions. So this is something that's personal to my family, but also I did a ton of research. So there are, the issues are also raised. Flights of Marigold combines magic and epic adventure and political intrigue, along with the idea of addictions. So the story opens in a rebel outpost during a series of rebellions. Meg is the main character. She's a magiel, or a magic user, but non-magical people can make simple spells as well, but they're what we today would call herbal remedies. So here's a bit from the opening. A wisp of incoherence in the corner of Meg's eye interrupted her pacing. A ghost, drawn to this place. There would be death tonight in the hamlet of Glenfast. She calmed, listening, her fingers creeping toward the death token at her collar. Yes, there, Footsteps running up the stairs. A fist pounded on the door, but before Meg could respond, it slammed open. Meg, quick, casualties! Nia panted, her hair, fair, sleep-tussled tangles, a wild dishevelment. The blur, like fog, swirled and dissipated. Nia was a force of energy, of life. Colm's raiding party, he's back! Nia remained half in the corridor, too agitated to enter. That meant Meg's sister, Janet, would be back too. Meg shoved on her boots. But Colm, stroke of good fortune or bad? Colm would have ridden at a measured pace and arrived mid-afternoon amidst some ostentation had the mission fared well. An unannounced midnight arrival with wounded? How badly had the raid gone? So Meg hurries to help, but she stops to see one of the soldiers, whose name is Tenor, and he says that she really has to talk to Colm, who is the lieutenant who has taken the raiding party out, to plead their case. So here's Colm's arrival. Colm glared at Fergus under the torchlight emerging from the great hall at a fast hobble, shoving an arm into a sleeve of his vest. Colm pointed to the cart. That was the price of 5 good men's lives. He didn't bother to lower his voice. Fergus buttoned his vest, scowling, the lines of his aging face sharp in the inconsistent light. Tend to your men's needs. We'll talk tomorrow. He jostled past his officer. 4 carts. Colm caught his elbow. Oats and barley, 24 bags of last fall's apples. We couldn't get near enough to get the gold. Not enough money or food to get us through to the fall harvest. 4 cartloads? That was all the raiders had been able to take from Wildbrook? Not a single prayer had been answered then. Meg had lived in Wildbrook for the better part of a year. It was a rich holding. Had been a rich holding. Fergus snatched his elbow away. We'll talk tomorrow. Do you know what they have, the High King's Royal Army? Muskets. Foreign muskets. Fergus glowered, but his hesitation told Meg he hadn't known. He turned on his heel and called to the tavern keeper across the press. We cannot stand against muskets, Colm called to his retreating commander. Even with fear-blocking filters, which were lacking because our magiel swills her own spells. Oh, no. Fergus whirled. You're saying I could have predicted muskets? Colm shoved his way through the knot of followers hanging on the exchange to confront his commander. I'm saying you should have listened when I told you. 40 swords and 20 horses could not breach Wildbrook's walls. Fergus snarled, then swiveled back to shout orders. Colm threw his hands up in the air and strode in Meg's direction. Colm Cordell, Meg cried, a word. You have work, Magiel Falconer. He pushed past her. The house of healing will be filled tonight. When do you leave? I must speak with you before you go. She would go to the house of healing without delay, but first she must secure an appointment. He had put her off too many times. He halted and pierced her with his eyes. And I would have a word with you. He changed direction and shouldered his way to the back of a cart. Reaching in with 2 hands, he hauled someone by the armpits from the straw bedding. Janet. Gods, had she been... He deposited Janet on her feet. She giggled, clutching at the side of the wagon. A hodgepodge of ragged skirts escaped the cinch of a down valley bodice beneath shreds of a too large traditional robe over her bare legs. The grime around her knotted hair was of a greasier sort than the blood and mud of the soldiers. It abraded into her forearm, elbows, and feet. She slithered to the ground, a heap of sticks and leg arms. Stick legs and arms. Meg's stomach squirmed in relief. Her sister's high forehead and pretty dimples were a sad imitation of their mother's elegant loveliness. Meg wanted to crush her into a hug, hold her. keep her safe. But she couldn't lose this moment. "Sir, a meeting." "This Magiel," he growled in Meg's face, "is worse than useless. Her spells did not work. What spells our men got? Because she tasted most of them herself." Gods, Janet taking her own spells was exactly what Meg had been trying to prevent by pleading with Colm to let her sister go to war where there was useful work for her to do, a sense of mission to displace Janet's unaccountable drive to deaden herself. "Sir, I must consult with you." "This is not the time, Magiel." She bit back her anger. "Please." He blew out a breath of annoyance. "Tomorrow night, not before." She closed her eyes in thanks. "And not before every one of my men is tended to." He scanned the chaos, his attention already flown. Her face flared with heat. He implied she would never abandon her charges. Janet wobbled where she sat, then leaned over and vomited. Oh, gods! What more could she do for her sister? Colm flinched from the stink, whipping his cloak back. "You govern her," he clipped, "or I will imprison her for the duration of the war, I swear." "Colm, sir, she's not..." "Or hang her as a traitor." So when Colm won't listen to her, Meg does go to the outpost of their commander, Fergus, still trying to get the people in charge to listen to her ideas. First, though, she does go to check on Janet, and when she gets to the House of Healing, where she had left Janet in the care of somebody to look after her, Janet has disappeared. Where to look? She climbed down the attic ladder, through the upper level to the main floor, and found Nia with the local midwife in a small room off the house's entry. They sat at a table in the relative brilliance of 3 tallow candles. A scatter of vials, small cloth sacks, and clay pots littered the table before them, inventorying their stock of worldling spells. Nia looked up as Meg entered the storage room, closing the door behind her. Nia shook her head, mouthing numbers. 24, she said, and the apothecary's wife, seated at the tiny table, wrote the number on a scrap of linen. "The heart speed," Nia said, sorting through an assortment of vials. "I could have sworn the storeroom had 15 vials this morning." This sounded right. Meg did a mental calculation. She'd made over 30 in the last few weeks, and except for the 10 she'd sent with Colm on his last raid, none should be used until the men went out to war again. Colm had asked for 2 vials for a runner he'd sent, and another might have been used. Meg was so tired she couldn't remember, but if Nia said there were 15, then there must have been 15. "How many do we have?" Nia held up a handful of vials. 6. "Did Colm or Fergus send the men out on some new raid and ask you for them?" "No, the men were not up to going on another raid so soon." Meg did not have time to hunt the missing inventory or puzzle out how and why bickering commanding officers undermined one another in bids to prove each other wrong. She had to... "Janet, by all that's holy." Nia gave her a sharp look. "What? Have you seen my sister?" Her voice thickened with fury and dread. Dawning comprehension crept onto Nia's face. "She's not asleep upstairs?" "No, I checked." The 3 women exchanged worried glances, and the midwife let the sack on her lap collapse to the floor. Meg thrust her candle into the globe lantern. "We'll help you look." The apothecary's wife put her quill down and pulled her shawl from the back of her chair. Nia leaned close, her voice low. "Let her go." Meg gave Nia a sharp look. The other woman slipped from the room and they were alone. "Meg, you've done everything for her. Everything a person can." Meg opened her mouth to... What? What could she say? We need you, not just as a healer, we need your battles with Fergus. You might think he doesn't listen, but after you've spoken to him, we get supplies. But you've been so distracted by Janat, I can't leave her. What can you do to help her that you haven't already done? Meg bit her lip, her head shaking in slow powerlessness. I have to look for her, Nia. I'm sorry. She's my sister. Meg turned to the door, covering her head against the rain. I'd rather she be found before Colm hears of her disappearance, or hears of the loss of the heart speeds. So Meg and Janat do leave the rebels. They go to heal. They go to High Glen to find the fabled prayer stone. There they meet some very interesting characters. They meet an ambitious princess who's vying for power. They meet a regent creating steam-driven textile monopoly, and a charming swindler setting up an elaborate scheme. So hopefully you enjoy having a look at this book. The links for seeing it are on the chat here. But first, before we go into question and answer, I would like to, I'm so thrilled to share the new video that Holly made for me. It's called A Taste of Images, The Rebel Camp. And it ties together the action, the politics, the addictions, and all these threads from the book's opening.
Thank you so much for your reading, and I will turn on the video for us. Here we go. Enjoy. Ghosts are gathering. There will be dead in the village tonight.
What will the sea?
The raiding party's back with wounded. Too many wounded.
Where are you now?
How badly did the raid go?
I can't find you in torrents of time. Who are you now? Visions gone by.
Our resistance leader won't listen to reason. How can I convince him?
Bonds are broken and scattered debris. Pathways are
Going to bury my man.
remember who you are. Remember who you are.
High Glen is vulnerable. While the king looks away, the heir will usurp the throne. Now is the time. Now is the time. In this chaos, Janat and I must go to High Glen. We must recapture the fabled prayer stone. Without that gem, we can't release our fallen people's spirits. We must take High Glen and set our people free. And set our dead free.
Thank you so much, Holly. Thank you. It was a bit glitchy, but you can, if you look in the chat, I think Holly's put the link there and you can go onto YouTube and see it a little bit smoother.
I'm putting it in again. There we go. I'm going to play a few, I have a few questions for Susan. But I always find that it's nice to have just a few minutes to think of questions. Please, again, type your questions into the chat. And I wanted to just point out that we included a bunch of Sora's audio from the music, excuse me, the music that she made for us. And we had a version of it with the first book launch trailer, and we remixed it for this one. And so I just wanted to play just a few seconds of that before we got into our Q&A.
Where are you now? I can't find you in torrents of time, visions gone blind. I've a future undefined, twisted divine, presence of mine, children of mine. Remember who you are. Crucified and mild, the wall where I find, save us all from the darkness of an empty fate of suffering without light.
There we go. I think now would be a good time to go into our Q&A. So I wanted to start off by asking, why did you set Flights of Marigolds a few years after Bursts of Fire? Why not right away?
I think it's because for a lot of reasons I wanted to be exploring quite a different aspect of a number of different things. The world is moving forward and changing, also the whole idea of addictions. So it's a 7-book series, and which gives lots of scope for dealing with different aspects of addictions. So Bursts of Fire, the first book, was about first tastes. And I really had intended the second book, when I first conceived of it, to be, what is like to go through an escalation in the addictions. But as I wrote the book, I realized it's much more about the relationship between Meg and Janat. It's about codependence, it's about enabling, it's about all the questions that Meg has in her hands as to how to show love for her sister, and not knowing what to do, and trying different things, and some things don't work very well, and they need to work through a lot of things. So that also meant that that Janat was a little further along in her journey in terms of tasting her own spells. But also the political situation is quite different. In book 1, the rebels are, there's a lot of political turmoil. The king has inexplicably tried to do a power grab, which has led to almost a civil war. That the rebels are popping up here and there, and they're trying to organize, and there's a lot of positive energy for the rebels. But after 8 years of getting beaten down and beaten down and beaten down, the whole, I guess, the energy for the rebels is quite different. So it's a different experience that way. But the third thing was that I also wanted to show how the world is changing. So this is a high fantasy. It takes place in a very defined realm of seven countries that are all interdependent. They have exchange with one another. But at the beginning of Bursts of Fire, they're maybe 30 years out from having discovered another entire civilization. In Bursts of Fire, a character brings steam technology up from the other world. So I wanted to show the development of that steam technology as well. So for instance, when they go to High Glen, they discover that there is a character who's fairly wealthy, and he's using his wealth to create a textile industry. So there's a lot of social implications for that. He starts by making a thread spinning factory, and so all the cottage thread spinners are out of work because the thread spinning factory can make better thread faster. So then they have to move into the city in order to become thread spinners. So that the world is changing as well. So it gave me a lot more scope for exploring a lot of different things in the same world but a different milieu.
Thank you. I have a question here from Rob Easton, who asks, what is the symbolism of marigolds throughout the book?
Okay. That came out in a kind of a roundabout way. So, for instance, you'll notice that Bursts of Fire has a red cover, and the very most important jewel of the 7 jewels is the ruby, which is red. Flights of Marigold has an orange cover, and have a look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? I got a local artist. Her name is Anna Maria Bortolotto. She made this for me. I paid her. Artists need to be paid. So this is the second most powerful jewel. It's gone missing in the series, and it is kind of the MacGuffin that everybody chases for 7 books. And so they go in order of the rainbow and in alphabetical order. Bursts of Fire, and then Flights of Marigold. And when you get all 7 books, it will be on your shelf as a rainbow. So I was looking for a symbol that would be orange, as marigolds are. And I wanted to get the sense of, through the idea of addictions, that the first taste is like a burst of fire, right? Wow. The second one is like a flight of flowers, of marigolds. It's the idea of, wow, this is just getting better and better, and it can't get worse, right? And so I wove that into the plot because there are a group of magic wielders that are referred to as the marigolds. And I won't say too much more about them because it's a pretty major plot point, especially they just start off in Bursts of Fire, but in Flights of Marigold, that's where we really get a lot more about them. So yes, it works into the plot, and I'm not going to say too much more about that.
Very exciting. Another question by Jeff is, do you collect pictures or images that help you to envision your characters?
No, I don't, actually. In actual fact, as I'm thinking about my characters, I'm thinking much more internally about them. So that's where I start. I start with, what is it my character really wants? What is it they need? What is it they're afraid of? You know, these are normal questions that most fiction writers will ask themselves about their characters. And so I really do see them much more internally than externally. So I have a vision of what they look like externally so that I can describe them in the stories. But no, I haven't used photographs as a tool.
Yes. Sorry, Jeff also has this sort of aside that I'm going to just include, referencing Anne Rice envisions Rutger Hauer as Lestrade while writing Interview with a Vampire. Are there sort of correlations in terms of the characters for other kind of archetypes as well?
Let me see if I can read that. Oh, yeah, as Lestat when she was writing. Yeah. And so the question is what?
Are there any sort of archetypes or characters that you look to as inspiration for certain characters in terms of their relationship with the world?
You know, I've been working on this book for a while, and to me, they're very real. I really can't say what the genesis was when I first started, but the longer I've lived with them, the more real they are to me. So, yeah.
Thank you for your answer. I think that just goes to show how personal this book is, and sort of you're coming at it from much more of an internal place. How many books in the 7 book series have you written? This is a question by Peter Hallis.
Okay. In actual fact, I've written a little bit of all of them up to book 6, and book 7 is fully planned. Now, having said that, although I know where the entire story is going, for each of the books, I've left myself some room to be fluid with that. One of the things that has really been super helpful to me has been working with my beta readers. I see Jeff Campbell there is one of my beta readers, and probably a few other people. I have to scan the list there. And also my editor, Lucas Law, because as we're going along, and as it was kind of like I was describing book 2, I had one sort of vision for the thematic underpinnings for book 2, and as I wrote it, I realized, no, I really am dealing with a different theme, I guess, than I thought I was, and so I had to let the book dictate that. So yeah, I've probably got anywhere from 40 to 60,000 words written in each of the other books, but that still gives me tons of room to play.
Peter also asks, if the answer is not enough of them, then have you worked or mined an overall arc? And in your overall arc, I'd like to add, you know, you've played with timeline, even between book 1 and book 2. Will we see other kind of jumps like that? And I have another question on top of that afterwards.
Okay, yes, definitely. It's a little bit funnel shaped. So the book 3 that I'm talking to Lucas about right now will probably take place a few years later, and then we're going to take this 7-book series and kind of make it like a trilogy of 3 and then another group of 4, because it's a family saga. So then there's a jump of about 20 years where the second, it's not a trilogy if it's 4 of them, but quadrilogy or whatever it's called, series of 4 books will deal with the children of the characters that you see here, and then that gets much more compressed into a timeline until all the pieces kind of funnel together into book 7.
Was that intentional, as part of the magic system that we learn in book 1 is that the magiels have an ability to go back and forth in their own timeline. It's not, they can't necessarily determine their timeline, but every so often they can change where they are. So was that something you wanted to reflect in the overall book arc?
The way the magic system works is very interesting from a bunch of points of view. I think it's fairly unique. I've had a lot of feedback from different people who say, oh, I've never really seen a magic system like this, and they find it quite engaging. But it's also a really wonderful narrative tool for me, especially with 7 books, because first of all, any magic system has to have limits. And so when the women use magic, they cannot determine how their timeline is going to change. Just for anybody who's unaware, using magic takes things out of time for a very brief period of time. So for instance, if I'm creating a spell, I have some ingredients, I want to take this ingredient and I want to age it so that it's more potent and more powerful. I age that one ingredient. So it's a very small scale use of time. But because I've used time, now my timeline gets ripples, it gets a disturbance. And so I will spend a few hours living a different part of my life. And in that couple of hour period, I'm going to just snap in for a few seconds into some part of my life. And I don't know, I have no control over where or when that could be. It could be in my past, it could be in my future. And sometimes it's very hard for the magic wielders to even put together a picture of what their life is like, because they are getting such tiny snippets. It's hard to say what they actually mean. But it makes a great tool for me, because in writing 7 books, I don't want to repeat everything that happened in book 1 and book 2, right? There may be a few things that people in book 2 need to know, but I want that to be a completely separate story. I want it to be a completely standalone story. So you can pick up book 2 and read it from beginning to end and not have to have read book 1. So when the women can travel back in time, I can capture maybe a couple of important bits that the reader needs to know, but it's part of the story. It's not, let's stop everything and explain stuff to people, right? Same thing with foreshadowing and predicting. I can capture just a little bit of the future and hint at what is coming later. And because I have the 7-book arc all planned out, I know what those future events are. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely. And I think it really gives a sense of how you're using it not only as a writing tool, but also as a way of playing with your characters in an organic way. Like you can sort of, they can go back in time with new perspective at a later point in the book series and look back on it by being able to go back in time. I wanted to ask you, because we also saw the video, how did you go about making the video?
Again, trying to help people see and understand that, yeah, I've got a book out there too. It's really hard to be discovered in this vast field of amazing books that we have in science fiction and fantasy. So I thought maybe that is a way of drawing a little bit of interest. So that was the initial thought. I talked to Lucas Law with Laxa Media, and he was very supportive. He and I sat down together with Kevin Weir, whom I don't see here. He might be here on page 2 or something. But he really shared a lot of really valuable tips with us. We just met for coffee one night. And at the end of our meeting, he said, "Oh, I make book videos for a living." I said, "Oh, wow, and you shared all this information with me? This is so awesome." So he was really great. So big shout out to Kevin. And then I worked with Holly mostly, and also my other daughter, Amy, who's quite a video producer in her own right. And we created a series of ideas from mostly the first 2 books, because the characters are close to the same age, so we could use the same actors. Now, creating a regular book video, like a lot of the ones you see, you sort of see a picture of the cover and maybe the author, and the author might talk, or there might be some voiceover, or there might be some free footage from somewhere for some free music. But we wanted to do something that was just a little bit more ambitious. Now, we don't have the thousands of dollars that it takes to create like a Hollywood type movie trailer. But my daughter Amy makes music videos, and Lucas had already commissioned a song from Sora. So that's perfect. We'll just use the soundtrack of Sora's singing, and then, put these clips to it. So then I started recruiting friends and family members. My sister, whom you saw, she plays the role of Meg. She is an amazing person in her own right. She's a full mountain guide. When she became a full mountain guide, she was one of 5 women in Canada. So she's pretty awesome. And she has horses, and she was willing to help out. So she played the role of Meg. You saw that I grabbed my daughter Holly to play Janet. I have a friend whose name is Shanaz Nanji, and she is a phenomenal author. She was actually nominated for the Governor's General's Award a few years ago for her book, Child of Dandelions. And she's got this amazing palatial home. And I said, can I use your house as a palace? And she said yes. And she kind of vacated to another wing of the house for the entire day while I brought 7 actors over. And so you may have noticed in this video a very familiar face, Randy McCharles, with the long hair and the beard. He looks so kingly, and he had a king costume, which that helped. And I think I saw Anne Hodgson. There she is, down in the lower left corner. Anne played the Queen, and she's an amazing actress. I have to say that the books really don't deal too much with the Queen's life. I think she's kind of off to the side and mentioned twice and doesn't even have a name. But Anne was such a fantastic actress that we kind of sculpted that video around the Queen. And Anne is also, or until she retired a year ago, a middle school teacher. So she was able to recruit excellent boy actors. And for the current video you saw, I think maybe you saw that little boy. He's 6 years old with the cute face. He was the page that delivered the letter. Oh my God, that is my grandson. And I dressed him all up, and he saw all of us acting and doing this thing. And I said, okay, now you run in and give Auntie Sylvia your letter. And he said, I don't want to. Said, no, you can do it. You can do it. Come on. So he did. And oh my goodness, by the time we did 3 or 4 tapes, he was improvising. So you can't see their dialogue in there, but Sylvia says to him, oh, I see you have a sore head. Maybe you should go to a hospital. And in one take, he says, oh, I don't have to. I have a bandage. And in another take, he says, oh, I don't have to. I don't have COVID. So, that was just so much fun. But the other thing you got to notice is that my husband plays the role of Colm. And I said, you look great. I can dress you up. He says, but I'm not an actor. But you know what? He bit the bullet, and he did it. And I am so lucky. So yeah, just called on friends and family. And then the amazing vision of my daughter Holly. She is an artist. She's got her BFA in media arts. She's got all the professional equipment. She's got a professional camera. She's got professional editing software. You'll notice that the music in this particular video was modified somewhat. She did all that. And I just looked at the clock and I see it's 2:48. So I guess we're kind of running out of time. So I should stop talking.
It was really enjoyable to hear all the stories, especially about, the bandage and the COVID. So I was happy to let you continue. I also want to end off on one last question. How does the music impact the potency of the spells in the series? This is a question by Jeff Hughes.
Sorry, I missed that. How does music impact the
Does
potency?
music impact the potency of the spells in the music? Sorry.
Yeah. In actual fact, I don't believe there is any connection. I was, after the first book was written, and I was talking to Lucas, the publisher, about, what's next. And Lucas has done so much work. He's got me blog posts on my favorite bits by Mary Robinette Kowal and whatever by John Scalzi, and he got me all this, publicity and stuff like that. So lucky. And he was the one who commissioned the song. so that was kind of a separate bit after the book was written. And I don't have any particular plans to integrate music and the spells. I'm just re-listening to Dune right now, and yeah, he does that in Dune, but sorry, not in the Addicted to Heaven series.
Could you take a few minutes and talk just a little bit about what it was like working with Laxa Media and what you are planning on doing next?
Yes, well, again, I think I've said quite a bit about how thrilled I am to be working with Lucas at Laxa Media. He does a beautiful, beautiful product, as you can see, and he's so organized. He has the advanced reading copies out 6 months in advance so he can send them out to reviewers. And you hear all these people say, oh, it's my book launch. I hope my books arrive. I've got a box full of them and I've had it for a couple of months, so it's great. So he's been awesome. And yes, book 3 is the next one on the go. And I'm hoping it will be out next year at When Words Collide. But you know how the publishing business works, and especially impacted by COVID, everything is up in the air right now. So we'll see how that goes.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put links in the chat for everybody for the video. We talked a little bit about book trailers. If you go to the link that I've provided, it's the current trailer, but on the YouTube channel, there are also all the previous videos as well. I want to thank everyone for coming out today and supporting Susan Forrest in her book launch. I think we have a lot more to see from Susan, and I'm really excited with all the really cool ways in which you're engaging audiences, you're engaging different communities, and the ways in which you know, you're focusing your book specifically to talk about addictions and what that looks like. So I want everyone to give a big round of applause for Susan Forrest. And thank you to our host, Kim, and thank you to Susan for sharing so much.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Okay, so that's the end of our session. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And if you have nothing else to say, Susan, I'm going to shut it down so we can get the next one going for our next time slot at 3 o'clock.
Okay, thank you very much.
And just so you know, that video is really, really good. I was very impressed by that. Like that was a surprise. Like when that was. So now, if you put that much work into your book as you put in that video, this book's got to be awesome. So I think I'm going to be reading your first one first, and then on to Flights of Marigold.
Oh, thank you.
And if you like audiobooks, the first one's got an audiobook as well.
Oh, okay. Very, very well done book launch, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. And